Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the FanScription Podcast. I'm Walter Benaziak here with my usual co-host Rob Walker, and another Walker appears. It's Doug.
What? Hi.
Who let him in?
Okay, I haven't left.
Yeah, no, nobody's left their houses. It's just us in our houses, of course. So we did 2 episodes of FanScription in May. We didn't have a chance to talk about those for a few weeks here, so this is a little late, but hopefully you're still checking this out. The editorial last month was fixed by the endings, or saved by the endings, Onward and Rogue One, which is written by Rob. And our regular type fanscription was What If Lola Bunny Was Funny in Space Jam, which was written by Doug. And this is an episode he's wanted to do for a long time, so I'm glad we finally fit that in. We're going to be talking about both of these episodes. The first one's going to be Rob's editorial, and there's 2 movies there. So let's talk about Rogue One first. So this was the first spin-off of Star Wars in the Disney era. I remember liking it.
First of
pretty good.
Only 2 so
Yeah, I
far.
was gonna
I
say
know.
so far.
Right.
I
well,
want
let's
that Mos
go to-
Eisley movie.
yeah, right.
Between Solo, Rise of Skywalker, and Corona now, I'm wondering how many more. Well, I mean, I guess if you count Mandalorian, but
Right, I was gonna say
the
Mandalorian.
film
maybe
world
the-
at least, though.
Yeah, the Obi-Wan series, if that ever comes to pass. But this was the first one that they tried out outside of the Skywalker saga, as they like to call it now. So Rogue One, I really enjoyed it when I first saw it. I think that, like you said in your episode, Rob, the ending kind of lifted you up, like before you left the
Yeah,
theater.
if you asked me 20 minutes into that movie, because I remember Doug was next to me, and I just remember kind of saying, just like, we're kind of in trouble here, and it really pulled something like out of the hat in the last third of that movie. By about halfway through the movie, I was actually starting to enjoy it. But yeah, the first 20 minutes, I was just like, what is going on? Like, it was an okay intro, and then I'm just like, well, who is this person now?
It's
And I guess
all about the squid monster.
yeah, we'll just
Where
skip
all
over
the answers
yeah,
were.
the Forrest
Right.
Whitaker, lies, deceits. But yeah, I was really amazed that by the end of it, I actually really did enjoy it, and I'm like, what the hell happened here? Because 20 minutes into it, I thought it sucked, and it's really what happens when you pull out a pretty satisfying ending.
Mhm.
If you leave on a high enough note, you can kind of forget about what was going on earlier.
Right.
So yeah.
So you guys wrote a Nostalgia Critic episode for this one. So what were your
Yeah, you were
overall
in it.
thoughts? I know I was Cassie and Andor. Can you tell? Yeah. So that was we kind of know your guys' thoughts in terms of like overall kind of what you thought of this movie through that and through conversations I've had with you. But so overall you liked this one more than you disliked it, right? I mean, you said like
Oh yeah.
that,
Oh no,
right?
I liked it more than I disliked it because of that second half. Between the Vader killing spree, and the final space battle, and the fact that it had like kind of a darker ending, which made those characters feel more important than I thought they probably were, because honestly, I couldn't even remember most of those characters' names.
Yeah.
But in the way they kind of self-sacrificed themselves, it gave it this sense of importance, and also tied together with the original trilogy. Like it gave episode 4 a little bit more importance, I thought. Not more importance, it was important, but I felt like, oh, so this is what the Rebellion is about, because I always actually really liked the Rebellion. I liked playing games like X-Wing when I was a kid, or Rebel Assault, and so it was fun to see kind of that side of it instead of just like, oh, it's just all about Luke and Han and Leia. So
Yeah.
On top of that,
Yeah.
too, what I just realized is that we talk about, oh man, this movie, like first half or whatever, isn't that good, but it's not terrible. The characters aren't bad; they're just not that interesting.
yeah, they're
But there's
just
nobody.
bland.
I'm like, oh, not this person again. I mean, like in some of the prequels.
Yeah,
you know?
no, there was
Right.
no, the prequels were worse than that. No, there was no point. Honestly, like Solo was the one that I thought was bad. I just really was not getting into it. But this one, I was just like, this is really kind of bland and dragging along. And then, yeah, it just kept getting better and better as it was moving along.
Right. Have your guys' opinion changed on it since you saw it in the theater? Have you gotten to watch it back anytime recently?
Yeah, it's my opinion's pretty much the same. I'm like,
Yeah.
the first half is just kind of slow. I wish we got to know her backstory a little more. It just jumps ahead and then just plops you. It's like 20 something years later, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Or De Whittaker too. Like, I'd love to know what his
of
story
course,
is.
Yeah, there's all these characters. There's all these great ideas for characters, and you never really know much about them. All of the characters on paper, I think, are good ideas. They just didn't really do anything with it, though.
Right.
I'd love to know how. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say how they always talk about the Snyder Cut is finally being released. I'd love to know what that original cut of Rogue One was like.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of
different.
Yeah,
right. I know the ending especially was completely different, where at least some of them survived. So, spoilers, sorry. But
I kind of like the fact that they all died. So that was one of the main issues why they wanted a different cut. But I feel like there was more stuff tinkered with. Because the movie felt a little strange the way it was put together. But clearly, whoever had most control over that second half, they made the right call. I don't know if that was the director, the studio, whatever. But, I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes the studio can actually make a dull movie better. It doesn't happen that often, but it can. So.
Well, it's Disney, so I mean they have that hit and miss kind of record.
Pretty good track record. I mean, for a while they had a really good one.
Right. I mean, you could talk about the Marvel movies too, with there's constant changes in directors and everything. So they are still very hands-on with the properties they own. So Star Wars can't be that different, right? I did want to say, so Forrest Whitaker's character was in Clone Wars. So his character was established in the Clone Wars series before that, not voiced by him or anything. It was a very different, younger version of him. And he also showed up in Star Wars Rebels, the sequel series to that.
Did he talk like that? Did he have a voice?
No, he was not like that.
That's great, but if you didn't see the Clone Wars, then you're like,
I know
this is my problem with modern movie
supplemental
making.
Yeah, there's supplemental material, and the universe building can get in the way of telling a good story or presenting a good character. But yeah, he was not really much like. I mean, there's like hints of how he was from Clone Wars which is like in between episode 2 and 3, mind you, and how he turns out in Rogue One. But it's interesting to see the evolution of that character, but he is very, very different. Like Whitaker definitely was like, yeah, I'm just going to do whatever I want really with this guy. So,
in a weird way, God bless him, because like it did stick out. That character.
You can't say it didn't stick out. You're right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if there's too much else to say about Rogue One. I think that, it's pretty well known what your guys' opinions are on it. And you said, pretty much all I think you need to say in your episode, Rob, about the end.
I think the biggest thing is that was the best space battle I've seen since the Jedi.
The Star Destroyers combining, and that was great.
Yeah.
I love, because what I like about that battle too is I feel like they answer a lot of questions that you kind of have as kids. They always say shields. It's like, well, what happens if you crash into the shields or like the shield on the planet or whatever? And you see it. You see him like slide across the shield on the planet. You see him crash into a chair. You see him do kind of all the stuff you, as a kid, you're always like, well, what if this happened? Like that movie kind of showed you what would happen.
And Tarkin and Leia aside.
Yeah.
They were
about that for a second.
those two aside, I think when it came to all of the Red Squadron or the squadron characters they had brought back from A New Hope, that's the way to do it.
Sure.
I was just like, oh my god, it's like those guys. Like it felt really fun, and in a strange way, I was more invested in their characters maybe than the characters, but. It was fun to see them again. So that's a way to do it. It's a great example of like how to do it with that and how not to do it with Tarkin and Leia and the big China doll eyes and face that she had. And Tarkin.
She looks like Battle Angel a little bit.
Yeah, Tarkin has this weird thing where like he moves really weird. There's like one point where I swear he almost clowns.
Like, the mouth is the big thing for me. Yeah.
All those little
things. It's like his mouth is like it's just I don't know.
Yeah. If they kept him to just like his reflection in the mirror or the window, and we just saw like the back of his head, and we heard
that's what everyone thought they were going to do.
Yeah, then he turned around. I remember seeing that. I go, that's Tarkin. Then he turns around, and I'm like, oh, that's Tarkin. Okay.
Yeah. No, it would have been way cooler if they were more subtle about it. But
yeah, for sure.
The Leia
hubris. Yeah, the Leia thing just never looked good. That was a bad call.
Oh, it was so creepy.
Yeah. Not good. I guess last question about Rogue One. We saw, and we talked about earlier, the Darth Vader scene in the hallway, and everyone still loves and talks about that.
Even if you hate the movie, you love that scene.
That scene's amazing, yeah.
I don't never trust anybody who says they hate that scene. I'm like, you don't need that kind of negativity in your life.
Right. Why don't you think they haven't focused on trying to bring us a Darth Vader movie or a series, because it seems like just a home run waiting to be hit. It's like
Because he's already
just
been
do
ruined
that.
by the prequel.
I was gonna say they did. It was called the prequels.
No matter what, even when I watch the original series, I keep kind of occasionally flashing back to the prequels, going like, "Yeah, that's Hayden Christensen under there."
Really? I thought if
Once
they
in a
did
while, I'll
something-
just be like, "Man," and I think, well, it doesn't help that they put Hayden Christensen at the end of Return of the Jedi, even though it's
Yeah, I know,
crusty old Elmer Fudd or whatever when Luke takes the mask off.
right. I just think in between episodes 3 and 4, like Vader at his height, like hunting down Jedi and all that stuff, would make a great movie that people would want to see, and would be a whole movie of him like tearing people apart, like in the hallways.
I wanted to see Admiral like Thrawn, and I know we got him in Clone Wars and stuff, but I would love to see
Rebels,
a live
yeah.
action interpretation. So
Yeah, it would be cool to see Thrawn.
I don't know. I mean, they were obsessed, I think, with the new trilogy, which is fine had it been good the whole way through, but that fizzled out at the end. So maybe they'll re-examine it because with the success of The Mandalorian, maybe they'll look at it like now. I don't know.
Right, I know. My voice. I think that
know.
well, you're right.
Distance.
It's just psychosomatic now. Yeah, I think that they're adding a lot of characters to The Mandalorian season 2. So I think they're going to be testing the waters with what they can and can't pull off with some of these characters.
We'll see what happens. I actually was enjoying The Mandalorian for not doing that.
Yeah, I'm there with you. But I mean, they're bringing in Ahsoka. That's the big thing. So if you guys haven't seen the Clone Wars or anything, that's kind of the big breakout character.
That's the orange character, right?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. I don't watch the show, but I've seen that character everywhere.
Yeah,
I have less problems with doing that because one, the Clone Wars is animated.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore there's not live action characters that you can kind of ruin or screw up. Yeah, I'd be more interested if it's like Clone Wars things, because having not been too attached to that, I'm like, well, fine, whatever. It doesn't matter to me then. Like, so it's strictly selfish, but
right.
I'd rather not see like, oh, we're going to bring Lando into this, and we're going to do this and that, and like any other characters. So.
Dave Filoni, who is the big showrunner for Clone Wars and Rebels, all the animated stuff, was a big producer on Mandalorian. I mean, he directed an episode. I was watching the behind-the-scenes documentary just the other day, and he was really hands-on with Jon Favreau with the creation of that series and stuff. So I think that he's also trying to see what he could fit in from his characters that he created or like cultivated with George Lucas across the Clone Wars run to bring them into Mandalorian to live action stuff. So I think Mandalorian season 2 is going to be a big sort of testing ground for all that. And a lot of things are either going to shoot off from that, or it's going to be like, okay, we tried that and it's not going to work on their own.
I want them to do that because I would rather have an excuse to watch Clone Wars. We've all seen the original. We've all seen the original trilogy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who haven't, including me, that have seen some of the Clone Wars, but like just did not follow it, like maybe younger generations here have. And I would love to have an excuse to be like, oh, well, this is in The Mandalorian. Like, well, maybe I'll go back and watch. The original trilogy, though, is so iconic now that I feel like you do it a disservice by trying to shove that in there. But Clone Wars, there's more room really to like kind of screw around a bit.
Yeah, for sure. It's I mean, I can't recommend it enough. I mean, I just watched it, late last year. So it is so good, guys. I mean, it legitimately makes episode 3 better. Right? But it legitimately makes episode 3 better. I know. But I'm just saying, it is like the first season can be a little rough because they're trying things out and like it's sort of trying to find its identity, but it gets more and more serious as it goes along, and like really.
See, that's the problem. I started at the beginning, and then
I understand.
Like, and then everyone's like, "Oh, it's so good now." I'm like, "Son of a bitch!"
You gotta push through. To the ending, like where they just wrapped it up, just last month, I think, or in April. They directly tie into episode 3. So we're seeing things happen congruently. Like we're seeing like a B-side story to episode 3. That's where it all leads to. And it's great. I'm telling you, like it will improve everything that happens in episode 3. Now, retroactively, and it's obviously not the intent of George Lucas and everything to have all these layers that are happening, but it definitely makes for a better viewing experience. So that and the Rebels show as well. I as a Star Wars fan, I didn't watch it for a long time, but I would recommend it to you guys if you ever get a chance to check it out. And anyone who's watching this as well. So moving from Star Wars to Onward now.
Onward.
So I think
they're all Disney now.
Right, I know everything's Disney now. This was the latest Pixar movie that came out right before the virus hit and everything, so it was only in theaters for a couple weeks. But I think a lot of people discovered it on Disney Plus and kind of have a fondness for it now, like a lot of the Pixar movies. You guys seem to break from that a little bit. You didn't like it as much, I think, as other people were, exclaiming that they did. So what I want to talk about your problems with it first. Why didn't you like it as much as a regular Pixar movie?
Doug liked it more than me. But the first
I thought about halfway through, it got good. I think for him, it was mainly the ending. As soon as the actual journey started, I thought it got
Yeah, but even before, when the actual journey, but even on the journey, the first part where they go to the kind of Chuck E. Cheese type place.
See, I love it. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, Doug really loved that. The whole idea, at least at the start, felt like Groening's new show, Disenchantment or why can I never remember?
Disenchantment.
Disenchanted, yeah. It felt kind of like that, which that show already has a few problems where it feels a little watered down sometimes. They all just felt like kind of like hand-me-down jokes, like, man, this would have slayed them maybe in 1998, but at this stage in the game, we've seen fantasy like lampooned. We're 20 years past Lord of the Rings, and I'm just like, yeah, I've seen all these jokes before.
You've seen these characters before, too.
Yeah, it's very much in the Flintstones vein of just like, oh, the dog's a dragon. Oh, spray it with the water. Down, boy. And I'm just like, the other thing is the world building was very strange. It's just like, there was magic once, and now there isn't. But these are all magical characters. And I just remember thinking, how does this universe really work? It didn't say, because it's like a modern suburban environment. And generally speaking, I had the same problem with a little bit with something like Goof Troop as opposed to the rest of the Disney afternoon. I find suburbia just boring as a subject.
Unless you do something really twisted like Edward Scissorhands or something, like do like kind of a fun commentary on it.
But generally, when you have all this imagination, it's like, oh, what are we doing it? Well, it's just like our world, and I'm like,
why is that interesting? Yeah, that's always my thought. I'm in our world,
And then the weird thing is their father's dead, and then they bring his legs back. And it was somewhere around there where I'm like, what is the tone of this movie anyway? This is so bizarre. And as it kept going, I was just kind of really bored with it. And then there was this conversation where they're on a giant cheese puff.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how his other brother's talking about how he was too scared to say goodbye to his father because he was all attached to the tubes and this and that. And I'm like, this is an amazing scene. It's incredible. Again, though, tonally, they're on a giant cheese puff. And I kind of am looking at this this is so weird. But, I had a conversation with my own father because he saw it on Disney Plus. And he said that was his favorite scene because he had a similar experience when he was a kid way back when. And that he really identified with that. So I'm like, okay, so this is a really good scene. And that kind of kick-started it a little where I'm just like, okay, I'm starting to warm up to this movie a bit as it becomes about something. And then that ending, for me, it was just the ending that sold it because I was waiting, as Pixar always does, for that out or that kind of Disney out where it's just like, well, I have to make a sacrifice. But then afterwards you find out, oh, it's okay. Everything worked out happily ever after all. You didn't really need to sacrifice anything. But in doing so, you still get everything and nobody has to learn any real lessons here. And it did the opposite. It's just like, I'm going to make the sacrifice and I'm not going to have that conversation with my dad. And I'm spoiler alert, I guess, or no by now, but it's
called Saved by the Ending. I mean, people don't know how these movies end.
I'm gonna do this, and I thought, oh well, obviously something's gonna happen. He's gonna see this somehow. He's gonna get
it or something.
Or his dad will visit him later or something. And when it went through the whole movie, and it's like, no, he never gets to do it. He just that's the point. And he has to live with that decision, and he gives it to the other brother. I'm like, this is ingenious. I never see this that much in a Disney movie. There's always some loophole or some out. And the other thing I liked about it is, unlike Frozen or a lot of other ones, there's no villain, really. which is pretty rare. And at the
there's
end,
still a fun climax with the dragon, which is
yeah,
also
still
very
a fun
funny.
climax. I mean,
yeah.
I guess you'd say the dragons of it, but
But that's not really a villain.
it's a dragon. And I'm just like, unlike Frozen, which had that twist, which I hated, where it's like, aha, I was the villain all. I'm just like, and I thought that movie, you didn't need a villain. I'm like, the story was there with the sisters. That's a story. You don't need some bad guy always. Like sometimes the bad guy can be society or just shit happening. And this one, it was just like, yeah, that was the bad guy. It was just, oh, shit happening. Here's a dragon. And in the end, it was just about their journey. So I liked it, and it pulled it out at the end. But I really, just like Rogue One, if you asked me a half hour into it, I was like, this is awful. So.
Right. And Doug, so you liked it a little bit more than Rob did?
Yeah, as soon as they started going on the journey, because you got more creative. I like the weird little biker fairies. I like this Grand Warrior that's now running like a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant. I like that the map is on like a placemat and stuff like that. It's actually having fun with the idea instead of, as Rob says, sort of like the hand-me-downs of like Flintstones and stuff like that, where I felt like they're really they're taking advantage of this idea. They're like, oh, here's an opportunity. And same thing with the characters too. The characters legit grow as the story continues too. So yeah, as soon as the journey started, which is about maybe the first third, or you could even argue the halfway point, I think that's where it gets a lot of fun.
Right. So compared to the other recent Pixar movies, like I love Coco, by the way.
Yeah.
Coco is I'm still finding layers in that movie. And maybe like The Good Dinosaur, which I still haven't seen yet.
That movie
you're not missing much.
The worst Pixar movie I've ever seen.
Wow, that's saying something. That's
man,
really
there's Cars too, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly, I thought Cars
movies
was better, hands down. Like Good Dinosaur, I'm like, this is rough.
So is this more like middle ground to you guys?
I'd say this is middle ground, which is funny because if it didn't have that strong of a last like act, I probably would be putting it way down. Not the worst, but definitely I'm like, okay, this is lower tier Pixar. Like it's fine-ish. I don't actively loathe this movie like The Good Dinosaur or Cars 2, but it definitely would have been like, this is kind of mostly forgettable. Like, but I'd say it's right in the middle.
When I forget, I think I asked you before. Did you ever see Monsters University, Rob?
Yes.
Okay, well, because I guess without giving it away, the ending to that, I'm like, I really hate this movie, but that's a good ending. Like, did you have a similar vibe to that?
Even though I didn't like the movie.
Yeah, like that's one. It's like it didn't save the movie, but it's like, man, that's a good ending.
I like this ending better though.
Oh yeah, me too.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of took some cojones to pull something off like that in a Pixar movie, I guess. Yeah. Especially considering the last few. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on Toy Story 4 real quick? I can't remember what you guys thought of it.
I didn't get into it much.
That's something that happened.
Yeah.
But again, I do like the ending. I thought it was a strong ending.
I felt it would have been really strong had it been Toy Story 2. But the whole thing with like, we got to find Bo Peep, and then Bo Peep's like, you don't understand, the kids just give you away and this and that. I'm like, this is literally the plot to this is Jesse's plot from Toy Story 2. Like, what you just literally did it again. So I
can't do it again. Toy Story 3
movie had it been pushed, had it came out like 1998 or something. But
gotcha. So I mean, Pixar, I don't know what their next project is, but they're still
either, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they
Toy
got on
Story:
the
The Next Generation.
Yes, they're on the starship.
I was definitely
Cars
disappointed
12.
that they even. Oh no, please. I was disappointed that they even made a Toy Story 4 in the first place because I love the original 3 of those movies. I think 2 is my favorite, but
Me too, why don't they just call it like Woody the Cowboy or something like that? Because then you don't have to shoehorn all the other characters in because they felt so
spin-off. It
Buzz was wasted for sure.
Several of them are dead. It's like, why do you feel like you have to shove them in? It's like, no, just make it about a couple of them.
Yeah, they did make spin-off like series, or not series, but like short films that were on ABC and stuff like that.
Those are fun.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Maybe they wanted to differentiate it from those and be like, this is definitely a Toy Story 4 level movie, so you should see this. It's not just about Woody, but it is just about Woody.
I guess, yeah.
So, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm looking.
It's all about Woody.
Right. But I do like Onward because it is an original idea, at least. So we get to see more of that, hopefully, going forward from Pixar.
Well, you've never seen Bright, my friend.
No, I actively avoided Bright, Doug.
Yeah. No, well, that was the other thing. I'm just like, Bright wasn't even good, but I'm just like, we just saw this like a couple years ago or something. Like it just, I don't know. As I said, that was my problem with Onward early on. I was like, I feel like I've seen this. Like this is a tired idea, but they pulled out something really emotional and groundbreaking kind of for a Disney Pixar ending out of it. So kudos to them.
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I was a fan of Onward when I first saw it. It's I don't know if I want to rewatch it. It's not like something I want to like rush back to see right away, but I did enjoy it. But coming off of Coco and like it's like, I mean, it's not quite up there. You know,
yeah,
that was a high
Coco,
part.
even by Pixar standards, is like really fucking good. I mean, it's like I can't believe how well that movie works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coco is like if Up was the first 10 minutes the whole way.
Yes, that's a great comparison, Rob. That is great.
I like Up is not even close to one of my favorites because like, oh, that first 10 minutes is great, but the rest of the movie I was like, that's fine. But like
Yeah,
Coco's
okay.
like, oh, so this is what it's like the whole way through then.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I gotta talk to my friends about that. But I would say Coco definitely keeps your attention too. I mean, like not just older people who can get invested in the emotions of everything, and you've been through life, so you could see why people feel so sad about people passing away and everything. But it keeps like really young kids' attention too, and not just. I don't think just because of the animation. I think the music really draws younger kids in. I have like a 1-year-old.
The colors. It's a very colorful movie.
Right, absolutely. I have a 1-year-old little cousin who is just mesmerized by that movie. She just like is on her playpen, just like watching it the entire time.
It's very energized. It's constantly jumping from one thing to another, which is kind of like into the Spider-Verse that shouldn't work. Like it's like, oh well, you're not going to give time for the emotion, but they do. Somehow they really combine all these elements together that normally wouldn't go together, but somehow they fit them pretty well.
Yeah, it definitely combined for a really, really good and unique experience, I think, for Pixar. So I think that's going to wrap up the first episode there.
Piss off, Rob. No.
Yeah, get out of here. So our more standard episode last month was a Space Jam episode. This is what if Lola was funny in the original Space Jam movie. So we know they're making a sequel. We wanted to kind of talk about that and the new Looney Tunes cartoon show, which is out on HBO Max. We kind of wanted to tag along with what was going on there. Doug, you've wanted to do this for a long time. I know this was like back like early or middle of last year. You wanted to do this idea. So why did you want to focus on Lola and Space Jam specifically?
I mean, a couple reasons. I think when I first saw the ads all I saw was this little, it was like this little hanging poster thing that has like Michael Jordan, Bugs Bunny. It had all these silhouetted characters, and one of them was Lola, and it looked like a bunny. I'm just like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like they're making up a new Looney Tune, like kind of a weird name for a zany character, but whatever, cool. And that just got me excited because I was just like, oh yeah, I guess there are no like female Looney Tunes, or like what, Granny or
30 fix.
But you know what I mean, like Granny or the Blue Bonnet Chicken from Foghorn Leghorn. Like that was about it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was insulted when I saw that in the video. Granny is smoking.
Maybe Tweety. I don't know if that counts, but
yeah, is Tweety male or female? By the way,
and they clarified that he's male, but it's like they play around. There's one episode where Sylvester even asks, "Are you a boy or a girl?"
I always thought Tweety was kind of asexual.
There you go.
Right. Yeah.
And then when I saw it, it's one of those things where it's like as soon as you saw the trailer, I was already like, "Oh no!" I was like, "Well, there's been some bad trailers. Who knows?" But like when I saw Lola, didn't you just know? Oh, they're doing this. They're doing the girl. Like that's it. That's the character. She's just the girl. And it just got me thinking. I was just like, well, what would a zany Looney Tunes lady be like? What would that be like? Like another, like a female boy? And I was thinking, like, well, we got Babs. We got Dot, and we got all these great characters. I'm like, oh, that's a shame they couldn't do that in Space Jam. And then when the new Looney Tunes show came along, I don't even know if that's there's like a lot of new Looney Tunes shows now, but you know what I mean. The one that's kind of like Seinfeld. They got Kristen Wiig as Lola, and I thought she was so funny. I thought she was probably next to Daffy, like probably the best part of the show. Immediately got me thinking, like, man, how cool would that be if like that was in Space Jam? Like just have a whole arc there, and maybe she's trying to become funny and like introduce her as like a new character, like actually written, not hi, I'm Lola, and boom, you're a character,
Right. They did sexualize her quite a bit.
Well, here's the thing too. Honestly, like they've done that.
I would have even cared had she had a personality.
Yeah, if they made it funny, like that's.
I'm not against a cartoon character being hot, but I'm like, yeah, be funny, have a personality, just anything, because the other Looney Tunes have had 50 years to develop their personalities, and they're like, okay, we're going to come up with a female version. They just dump her in, and it's just like, what's your personality? I'm hot. So.
Well, and I feel like you can do that, other, even Looney Tunes have done cartoons like that. The Aruga, Tex Avery has done cartoons like that and stuff, but they still have fun with it. They make good jokes with it, and they usually give the character a personality, where this one, it was almost like these two opposites. Oh, yeah, she's hot, and now, you literally see when she walks in, all the wolf characters are, and she's like, oh, don't call me dull. Don't treat me like that. Like, what? Which one are you going for here? Like these don't connect. So I thought
the 90s were a strange time, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So adding that character or that characterization of Lola into Space Jam, I thought you did do a really good job in terms of introducing her, and it was kind of her story along with Jordan and Bugs and everything. So you made
it. Too. Yeah, give other characters an arc, and nobody has an arc in that movie at all. Apart from like the magic feather from Dumbo, maybe.
The movie doesn't even have an arc.
Yeah, exactly.
Jordan, I think, does a little bit, happens. But right. Especially after watching The Last Dance and rewatching Space Jam before editing and stuff, I was like, oh man, this is like nostalgia overload. I love it.
Right.
Yeah, so this came out in '96. So I mean, I was very young when this came into theaters, and I was all caught up in the Jordan era of the Bulls and everything. I was a big Bulls fan, still am a big Bulls fan, but I mean, can't really say that out loud because they've been terrible for years now. But this
we
kind of
remember though.
Yes, exactly. But this kind of like tacking that on top of the Jordan myth, it made him like this untouchable character. Like, he's not even a man. What is he? He's a god. I don't know,
Well, it helps that his acting gives that kind of impression that he's not human.
Yeah. It's funny because you're right. It's like he's not the worst actor, but you're right. It's kind of like Schwarzenegger. Like, he's just speaking in a way nobody really speaks, so it's hard to grasp. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just kind of this other level we don't see.
No, if I'm being very honest, I have a lot more fun watching Shaq than I ever do Jordan try to act.
Yeah, honestly, Shaq does give a lot more
boring.
personality.
Shaq is kind of like weird, like that weird voice of his, like it sticks out way more.
He's legit kind of trying, where Jordan's just like, I'll just show up and do my thing. I'm too busy winning games, but I'll be nice to do this.
The harder Shaq tries, the funnier it is too.
Yeah.
Shaq, I mean, he's been in more movies that were kind of an out there premise, I guess, too. I mean, obviously Space Jam is, but Kazam is pretty out there. I mean, he plays a genie. Jordan's just playing himself. I mean, that's all that's happening.
Well, here's the thing, too. I mean, I don't know if people... I was going to say, I don't know if people remember, there were a ton of ads that had Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny, and they were like hot shit. I mean, like anytime one of those ads came on, everyone was like, shut up, let's watch this. Like, because they were like these really, really cool ads. So the idea of making a movie out of it was already odd, but it was like, maybe where something like Shaq, it's like, he's a genie. Like, all right, like we have no idea if that's going to work.
The Shaq stuff was just more batshit. I mean, that's really what it was. And I don't know. It was proof to me that Space Jam to me was proof that I love Michael Jordan as an athlete. Like, I was a big Bulls fan, and we like so many memories of watching the Bulls win games back in the 90s. And we all idolized Jordan. But that movie was proof to me that Jordan's kind of boring. Like, it's like we watch him for the athletic ability. I'm like, I kind of sat there and I'm like, it's certainly not for his acting, or I'm not even sure personality. It's just like whenever I think of Jordan and I'm like, oh yeah, Michael Jordan, awesome, I think of him on the court. I don't think of him off the court. Right. I certainly don't think of him in movies.
He seems like a guy who's very like a lot of great athletes. They're very inside their head, and they keep everything in there, like they're kind of calculating and stuff like that. So he's not someone that has a lot of.
When they're on the field or the court or whatever, they're in the zone. Like that's that's where they turn on, and it's just like it's not about their personal life or whatever.
But it's the business side too, like Space Jam and the commercial, all the endorsements and stuff. I mean, those are brilliant business decisions where someone like Shaq, who of course did endorsements and stuff like that, but in terms of, I mean, Jordan did one movie. I mean, think about that. It was Space Jam, and people still remember it. And if he did more, then people, it's like, oh, he's kind of just doing whatever. Maybe we're getting tired of him. But because he just did that one, I think he knew from the business mindset, no, I'm going to do one that's based on the commercials that were very successful. And even that, Bugs Bunny is very popular. I'll do that tie-in. Like, there's a business mind in there too. And I think in a weird way that comes out when he performs. Like, it's all kind of in his head. So I can't say he's like 100% boring, but if you were to say, is he a good actor? I say no.
I'm not implying boring does not imply he's an idiot. I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination. He certainly has some business acumen, though apparently he also has an issue with gambling money away. So just when we think about, certain celebrities and what makes them interesting, sometimes like, oh, they give great interviews, or actors or this and that. And even athletes, it's the same thing. You're like fascinated by them off the court or the field or whatever. Jordan's just not one of those. And the thing is, you said like, well, it's because he was only in one movie and it's a brilliant decision. I think there's a couple reasons for that. One, his acting's not that great in that movie, and I think a number of people noticed that. But I just don't think that he would have. I don't think he would have had quite the lasting power. I think people just eventually.
It's like Walter said, the mythos. Yeah. Like in one movie, he's playing himself with Bugs Bunny, another legendary character.
That's the thing. He knew how to play up his mythos, and I think that's very important. And I think the other thing is, it's like, oh well, because he only did the one film, and it's a genius thing, and that film still lasts because of it. I think the other thing we got to remember is just he's Michael Jordan. Like, there was nobody else like that. Like, we had Shaq, we had Charles Barkley and stuff, but I think some of it's just that movie is remembering this and that because he's Michael Jordan. Like, that's the secret. Right. He's this powerful athlete. I'm not sure it was like the most brilliant business decision. I think the movie had staying power because he's Michael fucking Jordan.
Right. I mean, no one really talks about Back in Action anymore. I mean, like that movie that came out a few years later.
Well, Brendan Fraser's in that one, man.
I know. I like Brendan Fraser. But,
I don't like him.
Yeah, but I mean, like, yes, I think Space Jam just hit right at the exact time that it was going to like be peak Jordan. Looney Tunes are still popular at that point. I mean, they've always been popular, but I think there was like a surge in the 90s, like because of those commercials and stuff.
Merchandise, T-shirts. Right. I mean,
the commercials, there was a new generation of kids. So the 80s kids, we grew up on the Looney Tunes reruns.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, you had I think Tiny Toons really brought that back big time. Tiny Toons then led to Animaniacs, and so there was this resurgence of this kind of Looney Tunes love going on.
Right. And I think that, so this came out in 96. This was right after Jordan's comeback, after he retired the first time. And they incorporated that into the storyline, obviously. But, I mean, it's just the perfect time. I mean, he's coming back to basketball. They win the championship that year. The Bulls, came back then. The year, I think the season before he came back, 94, 95. So, this was it was just the perfect point to do it. And it left such an impression in kids who've seen it that I think that's the only reason that it's still so popular, is because of the timing and who's in it, and just was the perfect point with all the pieces coming together. And making the sequel now, I mean, obviously, everything in the 90s is now starting to get looked at again. I saw Animorphs is going to get another. I don't know if you guys remember that book series.
I kind of know.
I remember.
Yeah. So they're digging around for all this stuff now. I know that LeBron James is such a popular athlete and one of the best basketball players ever too.
And he was funny. He was, what was that, Trainwreck, I think? He was he was very funny.
Yeah. I'm actually in a strange way a little more hopeful for this movie because I'm hoping LeBron James is a better actor. So,
I think he's going to give it a little bit more of a try. And he grew up with Space Jam too. He loves Space Jam as well. So he's like a fan of this, this franchise now, I guess you could say. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to be doing. It is. They're making a second one.
I would love if I know it sounds strange because like what I made fun of in the original, it's like, oh, it's the most 1996 thing ever, but that's also part of the charm. I would love it if, like, every 20 years another one's released with whatever the hot athlete is. It's the most, like, this will be the most 2020 movie ever made, and then the 20 years from now will be the most 2040 movie ever made, you know, and it just keeps going. Like, that might be kind of fun.
Yeah, that would be.
You really think we're gonna make it that far?
I don't know anymore.
We will, but Bugs Bunny will.
Yeah, right. Bugs Bunny will last forever. It's fine. So I think that in defense of Jordan's acting ability, or not really his acting ability, but his personality, he always kept very guarded throughout his whole career and everything. But have you guys been able to see the Last Dance documentary yet?
Not yet.
Okay,
I really want to.
So that's where we finally see everything just comes out about him. Like, he talks about things. He shows a lot of his personality, all those memes and stuff that have come out since then, because he gets to watch recorded interviews of some of his opponents and stuff, and they show him watching them talk about him, and sometimes it's not like flattering stuff, and he just laughs in their face. It's so we see all this behind the scenes footage and stuff of the practice with the Bulls and everything, and all the behind the scenes stories. And he was a really charismatic guy behind his public persona. So that obviously didn't really come across in Space Jam or anything, but I think we're just now starting to find out how charismatic and interesting of a guy, and complex, really, that he really was, because he was a tyrant in practice with his opponent, and not his opponent, his teammates. And everything. Yeah, with his teammates.
There are a lot of stories.
Yeah, he punched Steve Kerr. I mean, he was a real sort of pusher of his I keep saying opponents, his teammates, to be the best that they could be, so he could win these championships, so they could be a part of that. And it all comes out in that documentary. So looking at that now, it's like it'll be interesting to see that Jordan in a movie now, because everything we know about him now and everything, he's more open.
I was gonna say, even kind of the Space Jam one I wrote.
Or not.
I was saying, even the Space Jam one that I wrote with Lola in there, it's like, I kind of worked that in, because he's like kind of yelling at the Looney Tunes and like, man, I'm so disappointed, man, and stuff, and he tries to find their strengths.
That's the problem with Jordan, is he so guards his public persona, and that's his right. Like, I'm not saying like, how dare he, but it makes him kind of uninteresting, and I don't think it's like, well, that's the Jordan we would see if he comes in. Like, no, it's not. He would never. Like, I don't think he would. And I think that's one reason I've kind of avoided the documentary. It's because I kind of have to wonder myself, do I care? Like, I want to see it. My love of Jordan is all about just his physical acumen, what he accomplished in basketball. I'm like, I'm not entirely sure I need to know his personal life, but
they do talk about his personal life, but I mean, the main focus of everything is on what was going on at practices and all this stuff, and what everyone's thoughts were when they were winning those championships, and why he retired. They go into the stuff about his dad and everything, and it's not just like his personal life. I mean, they go into other people, what was going on. I can't recommend it enough. It's great. If you're a Bulls fan back then,
I really want to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys would really enjoy it.
It's like, everyone in the comments is going to be like, I thought you were going to talk about Lola.
We'll go back to Lola in a second. We got time.
But it's like, Jordan, man. It's like, it is Michael Jordan, though, man.
I know, it's Michael Jordan.
Yeah, we're from Chicago and lived in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. We lived through those two championship runs.
Separate generations, too, living through the 90s in Chicago.
Exactly. I was very little when that was all happening, and I remember everything.
I was very much a teenager.
Yeah, so you guys have probably more stern memories of what was going on there.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was not like anything else.
We're still in that transition century now, is it? It was gonna be a transition year, then it became a transition decade. Now we're in the transition century, trying to get a good team.
At the beginning of this decade or last decade, we were okay, like with Derrick Rose and everything, and that all fell apart, unfortunately. But we're just talking about sports. I know the Channel Awesome fans want to hear us talk about sports. Can we see a Nostalgia Critic review of The Last Dance?
They're fascinated if we know anything.
Right. I want to see an NC on The Last Dance. That'd be great.
Jordan's a terrible actor in this.
I know. I want to see it so bad. That'd be great. Or that'd be a great April Fool's thing or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess getting back to Lola here.
Funny movies.
I was a fan of how you changed and brought in that Kristen Wiig type persona into this, Doug. And like we said, having those arcs in there was really smart to get us more invested in the new characters, because we already know the Looney Tunes. We already know them. You can't know them any better, really, without like really changing their personality. So introducing her that way and sort of giving her the spotlight, I thought was great. I thought, man, Heather sounds exactly like.
Isn't that eerie? It's so fucking eerie.
Goodness gracious, he sounded exactly like Kristen Wiig.
Doug's Bugs is very heavy. So
that's all I could do.
It's almost everything just became like.
No, that's literally like before I said every line. Like a lot of voice actors have like something they say to get like to get the voice, and that was my just.
I kept thinking of Rolf's videos. What's up, Doc?
But what's funny is that, because you can't always hear your voice, so when I played it back, I went back and forth between like this very nasally Bugs, which I'm like, hopefully that works, and then one that's a little deeper. And the nasally one, like, man, I just wonder what these people actually sound like in real life, like Billy West and Mel Blanc and stuff like that when they do the voice, because like I had to go so nasally in order for it to really sound like Bugs. So I'm just wondering, like, for it to sound good on camera. So I'm wondering what it sounds like when, one of the usual actors does it.
I thought it was pretty good. My FUD could use some work. I was like listening to that going like, but I've never done Elmer Fudd before, so.
No, your FUD was pretty good, Rob. I enjoyed that. I thought
good. I'm good. You like my FUD.
I
know. It sounds wrong, doesn't it?
It does. I liked Malcolm's Jordan. I mean, like,
he did a really good Jordan.
He's so. I laughed when I saw it because I'm like, oh, he captured the Jordan acting style of not.
Right.
Yeah, he really got it.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't like inflect too much, which is what Jordan did.
Yeah.
I think the most authentic Jordan moment in Space Jam is when he like gets angry for a second, and he goes like, "I didn't get my butt dragged down here to get my butt whipped by a bunch of ugly monsters." Like that's okay.
Yeah, because that was him on the court. I'm like, knowing what we know about Jordan, I'm like, oh, he could tap into that anytime he wants. Just like, I'm giving 110%. You all suck.
Yeah, it would have been great to see him like just totally go after all the Looney Tunes and mock them for like
Maximo Rao.
Yeah. Oh, that actually would have been awesome. So I guess there's not really too much else to talk about Lola. I mean, you did a great job of incorporating that different version of her. I guess what we can ask, because this has been a topic of conversation, is which version of Lola is going to show up in Space Jam 2 or A New Legacy, or whatever they're calling that movie. Because she's going to be in it, and I think they announced that the original voice actress from the Space Jam movie is going to be voicing her. So it seems like...
Okay, so what they can do, in my opinion, because it is tricky, because you have two very different versions, and this is a sequel to... one of those versions. So I feel like you can still change her up and you can make her funny and interesting and stuff like that. You just don't have to do an exact carbon copy of Kristen Wiig. I feel like they can still... I'm just hoping they make her loony. Just be zany, be loony, be like, the rest of them, it's a scene where Bugs saves Lola, and it's just like, what's just that they all get squashed? I mean, what's even the...
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to wait and see on that. I have heard that they're expanding this in terms of the characters involved. It's not just going to be the Looney Tunes. They're like really looking at the entire Warner Brothers catalog of characters, because the Mask is supposed to be in it. Like all of these. Yeah, that's a thing that's out there. So it seems like that's what they're going to be doing. They're like opening up the water tower, basically.
Bring in Disney. We'll do a whole Roger Rabbit thing.
Yeah.
Bring in
actually, it would be pretty cool if you got like Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, like just fucking throwing the Hanna-Barbera characters for fun too.
Bring in Sonic. It'll be one giant furgasm.
Yeah. My goodness. Bob, you're going to speak that into existence. I think that is a thing with Warner Brothers right now, because, we've heard those rumors. I'm sure everyone has Michael Keaton coming back to be Batman. That's a big rumor right now. Well, it actually has been confirmed that he's in talk. So it's not he's going to be in it for sure, but he's talking about coming back.
Actually, if we could bring Michael Keaton's Batman into the Space Jam movie as well, that would just be amazing.
Bring in the fucking Batman animated series. Have the Joker on the court, man. That'd be
every
awesome.
Warner Brothers character ever.
I'm actually liking this idea more and more.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring in the lunatics. Just really go weird.
Any Warner Brothers movie, you could bring them in. But I think that maybe ties into their new business strategy because that the Michael Keaton stuff, they're saying he's going to play possibly a Nick Fury type role leading to like a crisis event in the movies where they're bringing all the different kinds of characters that they've gone through in all the movies, all like the DC characters that they've done. And there are different universes and they can all cross over that way. So you could have a bunch of different versions of Batman or Superman or whatever you want to do. So maybe that's what they're doing is they're just opening up the catalog. We have all these characters that we haven't used in a long time. Warner Brothers is this big legacy company. So maybe that's a new strategy with a lot of their different movies, Space Jam included. What would you guys think about that if they did incorporate all those characters?
At first I was thinking like, no, but now I'm kind of like, that could be kind of fun, especially if it's like Space Jam. It's not like, oh no, the great story.
My first thought was like,
the characters,
it's Space Jam. Why not?
It's like, why not go for it?
I want put everybody in there. I want, the Warner Brothers Shield. I want that animated and in there.
There you go.
I mean, you could do something like Into the Spider-Verse, where it's like that's part of the fun is that you just bring in like everybody that you can, a lot of the big hitters. So honestly, I think that might actually be fun.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to have to wait and see on that. I'm sure that'll be a Nostalgia Critic review as soon as that comes out. So I'll be looking forward to that. Any final thoughts on Space Jam or what they're going to be doing with the sequel, guys?
Just make it funny.
I hope it's good. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the few people all my life I've gotten shit, but I'm just like, yeah, Space Jam isn't that good. So
objectively, it's not a great movie, of course, but it's all about if you grew up watching it,
I will say this, like
maybe I would say I was too old. Maybe that was it because I was a teenager.
It's also the only factor.
But my cousin loved it, and he's 6 months older than me. So.
But now that we're older, looking back on it, I will say it is the only movie I remember the exact year it came out because it is the most 1996 thing ever made, and there is a charm to that.
A fantastic time capsule movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think looking back on it, you could definitely get a lot of fun memories. It just brings the 90s right back.
Yeah, so. I kind of like seeing other people, kind of like you, Walter, I like seeing other people's reactions to it. Like, even if it's like, oh, this isn't like I remember, but man, don't you remember how much, but man, remember those shoes? Remember when he was in baseball? Remember when people said that? Like, and then people kind of have fun with it in a new way.
Pumping up your Air Jordans.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I think that's the best way to look at it as this time capsule movie. So that's a good point.
Because pretty much everything after 2001 kind of sucked. So it is fun going back to the 90s and going like, 'twas a more innocent time.
Right. There's just zany, crazy stuff going on. So Rob, this Tuesday, actually, just a couple days from the posting of this video and this audio, you're going to be doing another FanScription editorial. You want to talk about that really quick?
Yes, we'll be going back to the 90s, it turns out. I actually wanted to do this instead of the Onward one, but by the time I thought of it, it was too late. But there was an article that came out that said The Simpsons predicted both the current plague, I don't want to say it because apparently it could get demonetized on YouTube, but the current plague and murder hornets, both at the same time. And I rolled my eyes, I'm like, what? And then I saw it, and I'm just like, you know what? I just want to do an editorial on this, on how The Simpsons can't predict the future. That we're just looking at this 30 years later and drawing all these connections. But so I picked 3 major examples, including they predicted Trump, they predicted the Disney merger with Fox, and then they predicted the current plague along with the murder hornets, and actually go through what actually spawned these jokes and why they were actually jokes that were completely of their time and really funny and on the nose, but that they didn't predict the future. It's just that history just kind of repeats itself. But and I talk about that a little bit, like the difference between things like South Park and Simpsons, how they're both satires, but South Park is more in the zeitgeist because they've got a 5 day to 2 week turnaround, and Simpsons take 6 months. So, but yeah, just kind of talking about that and kind of going back in time a bit and showing people where some of these jokes actually came from.
Great. Well, yeah, look forward to that, everybody. In July, theaters are supposed to be opening up. But we'll see if that actually happens, considering everything that's going on right now.
They can open up, but there won't be any movies in it.
Right. I think that the first one that's going to be coming out in terms of new releases is going to be Mulan on July 24th. So I'm trying to think of something for Mulan.
And if
for
you don't wear a mask to that theater, dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow.
Exactly. If you guys do go to the theaters, please wear a mask. But that I'm trying to think of something for that. And they're also re-releasing Inception to sort of try and promote Tenet at the end of July too. So we got some things thrown around in my head right now. So we'll see what we can come up with for next month. But the next episode is going to be Rob's editorial, so keep a lookout for that. Thank you guys for joining me on the FanScription Podcast this month. Doug, we should have you back to write another episode. Just let me know next time you have an idea.
Yeah, when I think of one, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I think
like, I'm coming right now.
Well, 2.5 with the Ghostbuster one. I kind of helped right now, but that was mostly Rob.
That was one of my favorite ones too. I really like the Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
too.
I like that one.
For sure. Definitely. Okay, I'll talk to you guys next month. Thanks for watching and or listening, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Later.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.